Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey, and with me today I have
Monte McNaughton, Ontario's Minister of Labour, Immigration, Training and Skills Development.
and thanks very much for joining us, Monty. One thing I would like to start with is congratulations for winning re-election. And with that, I assume there's some manner of continuity since you were the previous government as well. But I'd like to talk about some of the big projects underway and the ones you guys have planned now that you've been re-elected again. So if we could start with that.
Well, sure. Well, Warren, thanks for having me on today. And really excited about the results, obviously, of the June 2nd election here in Ontario. Really, we were given a pretty substantial and overwhelming mandate to get things done for people here in Ontario. And, one of the things that we're really hitting the ground running at is building key infrastructure. So big projects on the horizon here in Ontario. I mean, major highways like the 413, roads, bridges, hospitals, broadband expansion, natural gas expansion. So lots of infrastructure that's going to get built over the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I noticed during the election was, and this is in BC, well, I guess you do see it because it's an NDP government, that you see Labour supporting them. It's fairly rare to see the Labour side of things supporting the PCs, but that's exactly what happened in Ontario. So maybe you could explain how you think that all came about.
Well, look, absolutely. I mean, it was historic. We, worked with labor groups, industry association, businesses, to ensure that we're getting things done for the people of Ontario. So 3 years ago, the Premier asked me to become the Minister of Labour for Ontario. And I remember those first 3 months meeting with over 100 Labour leaders, being the first Conservative Minister of Labour to march in a Labor Day parade a few years ago. And we continued building that momentum. But it's really around the issue of labor shortages that brought all of us together. I believe that our job is to help people find meaningful careers, purpose-driven careers where they can start and raise a family. And the skilled trades are a great opportunity for people here in Ontario and frankly right across Canada. And we really worked with our labor partners to get more people into the skilled trades. So that brought a lot of support during the election.
And yeah, I think you recently announced some initiatives around skilled trades and apprenticeships. So maybe you could go into a little more detail on that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, in construction alone here in Ontario, we need 100,000 workers by 2030. I mean, I've been pretty critical of past governments of all different stripes for the past couple of decades, where we really told every young person that the only way to be successful in life is by going to university. But that's simply not the truth. We know people in the trades making six figures with a defined pension and benefits, and I want more people in these careers. So two major things that we're doing starting in September, we're introducing the skilled trades at a much younger age in the elementary school system. And then secondly, for the second year in a row, we're sending dozens of recruiters into every single high school, really to compete head on with university recruiters, to talk about the more than 140 different trades we have in Ontario and the pathways to get into those trades. So it's all hands on deck to get more people into the skilled trades.
Okay. And we're currently undergoing pretty much across Canada, but definitely in Ontario and BC, a seventh wave of COVID. Part of that is pandemic measures and all the rest of which also impacts labor. But besides that, you've also got to build new medical facilities and improve and modify the ones we already have. So what's the Ministry of Labor's, what's the mission in that regard?
Well, I've said quite clearly that the greatest economic challenge we have in Ontario is around labor shortages. I mean, I think back to the beginning of the pandemic. In March of 2020, in Ontario, 200,000 jobs were going unfilled. Today, it's 378,000 jobs going unfilled. So that really is what we're focused on, is upskilling and retraining people for jobs that are in demand. And as I mentioned a moment ago, I mean, huge shortages in construction. So if we want to build, those medical facilities, all those new hospitals, we need to ensure that we have people trained for these jobs, especially if we want to build them on time and on budget.
And in terms of supply chains and inflation, that affects all this too. So how does what, if anything, can you do about that or to mitigate those problems and help with labor?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I grew up in a family, a hardware and lumber store in the area. I
Hmm.
remember as a young kid loading, lumber supplies into backup pickup trucks and big trucks to have them shipped to job sites. And we all know, the price of a 2x4 was about $2 or $2.50 before the pandemic, and it's $9 or $10 today. Well, just think of those large infrastructure projects. I had one in my riding, a road that's gone up by $1 million since it was tendered about 18 months ago.
Hmm.
Again, we're working through these challenges from a public infrastructure standpoint, ensuring that labor, government, and business is really working together to ensure that these projects move forward on time and on budget. And here in Ontario, everyone has stepped up to help mitigate the challenges, whether it's supply chains or the cost of things going up.
And do you foresee, I mean, obviously you can't give specifics, but do you foresee that we've had this happen here and other places in the country where there have to be cancellations of some of these projects because it just gets too expensive thanks to all these outside factors?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about a local project. We partnered with the federal government and the municipality in my riding to renovate a curling club and a curling rink, and they did cancel the project because it's more than doubled since it was tendered. So,
Hmm.
look, this is certainly a challenge, but that's why I'm focused, and really my mission is to get more people into the trades to fill labor shortages, because we have a pretty aggressive agenda, over 1 million homes in the next 10 years. We need to ensure that we have that labor force to build those homes. And, it's all hands on deck to do this.
And this may not be entirely your department, but how much of that is immigration as well? Because I would assume that we can't just do this by ourselves. We also need new Canadians to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, immigration was added to my ministry after the June 2nd election. We're setting out to renegotiate a new Canada-Ontario immigration agreement this fall because our current one expires. I've been
Mhm.
laying the groundwork, talking to provincial ministers responsible for immigration across the country, because the end of this month we have a meeting with the federal minister, all of us collectively. So our ask is to have more control over immigration, especially the selection process, to ensure that we're using immigration as a economic tool to fill labor shortages. But we're doing more than that. When we talk about all hands on deck, we're also, for the first time in Ontario, training people that are on social assistance for in-demand jobs. We've trained thousands of Indigenous peoples for careers in the skilled trades. And then, of course, we became the first province in the country to recognize international credentials, skilled trades workers, professions like engineering and architecture,
Mhm.
recognizing those credentials so they can get into jobs more quickly.
And I assume there's also an intra-provincial, which isn't technically immigration, I guess, but there is probably an effort to attract talent from other provinces as well.
Yeah, we introduced two historic pieces of legislation here in Ontario, and of course, many people were surprised it was done by a conservative government. But we introduced two pieces of legislation working for workers, and in the second one, we essentially are encouraging skilled trades workers from across Canada to come to Ontario by recognizing out of province credentials more quickly. So we set up what is essentially a 30-day customer service guarantee. If they want to come to work in Ontario, they can be recognized within 30 days, where before it was taking, I mean, it could take a year to come to Ontario and work.
Mhm. And my final question is about, and it's not a happy one, unfortunately, is there have been a recent spate of, well, for instance, the most famous one would be the guy hanging from the crane in Toronto. But that happened last year too. It's happened a fair bit, and it's not just isolated to Ontario. But what is, I assume this falls under your aegis. What is the Ministry of Labor doing to address these safety concerns that keep coming up?
Well, certainly, the top priority is to ensure that workers go home safe at the end of their day. We continue to send hundreds of inspectors out every week to job sites and to all workplaces across Ontario. I forget the most recent number, but we're over 100,000 workplace inspections since the pandemic hit. We've increased the number of inspectors to become the largest inspectorate in provincial history. So we're continuing doing that every single day. I mean, everyone needs to work safely, and overwhelmingly, the majority of businesses do an outstanding job. I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, there were voices out there wanting us to shut down construction entirely, and Premier Ford and I took a different path. We reached
Hmm.
out to labor leaders and contractors and industry associations to really figure out a path forward to keep construction open. And I'm proud to say, 550,000 people in construction continued working during the pandemic, doing heroic work. And the number of cases of COVID was quite low. So the industry has stepped up. Is there more work to do? Always on the health and safety front. And we're dedicating the resources to do that.
Okay. And finally, I would assume some of the people listening are voters in Ontario. So if they would like to contact you and interact about anything they've heard today, how would they go about doing that?
Well, absolutely. First, I want to say thanks to all of the listeners out there in the construction industry, building the future of not only Ontario, but Canada. You're heroes in my eyes. If you want to get a hold of me, my door is always open. Email monty.mcnaughton@ontario.ca or phone my Constid office, 519-245-8696.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Warren.